Hey, this is Thom Zahler, creator of Long Distance and Warning Label, and you are listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
You've just jumped inside the pull bag. Join TFG1Mike and the rest of the comic crew here at the GCRN as they make their great escape into comics. From DC, Marvel, and Image to IDW, Boom Studios, and Zenescope, we have everything right here. We cover things like Transformers, He-Man, superheroes, TMNT, and Radiant Black. Yeah, we have all that and so much more. It's all inside the pull bag here on the Geekcast Radio Network. So, without further ado, it's time to talk about the comics we're reading right now, here inside the pull bag.
Hello and welcome to the pull bag. This is episode 494. We are 6 episodes away from 500 on the road to 500. Here inside the pull bag, I'm of course TFG1Mike. Joining me for the first time in the longest of distance times is Mr. Jesse W. Jackson from Set Lusting Bruce. Hello, sir.
Hello. Yes, it is kind of appropriate in the amount of distance it has been since we recorded with our subject. It is kind of very appropriate, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It was 2015 when we did Love and Capes Volumes 1 and 2, and there are plans, folks, to get back to Love and Capes. However,
yes,
I just can't handle superhero. I've dropped, I don't know what's going on in Marvel. The only thing in DC that I'm paying attention to is Sean Gordon Murphy's Beyond the White Knight and the other Batman Beyond miniseries. Other than that, But anyway.
Yeah, I have stopped buying comics altogether. Now, I quit going to my weekly, stop at the comic shop. Now, I do at times, and I order trade paperbacks. So if I'll see something that's really good or someone will recommend, like, for example, I picked up the first Miss Marvel because I was really enjoying Miss Marvel on, Disney Plus and enjoyed it. So, yeah, it just has been, there's too much time, too much material and not enough time.
Yep.
So, yeah.
I pick and choose and I plan out, months and months in advance as, this is, by the time people hear this, this will be the middle of September, even though we're recording it in July because peas grow there. So Jesse is the person that introduced me to Mr. Thom Zahler. Thom Zahler, award-winning writer, cartoonist, all that stuff. Former, I guess technically former guest on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and all that and everything else. And you turned me on to this guy, and I say this guy, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So Jesse is my Zahler cohort. I usually have, like, my buddy Steve does most of the Beast Wars and other Transformer stuff with me. This person does this. Well, you are the Thom Zahler person, so.
And proud to be it. I am very proud to be there. So, yeah, I'm excited, and I'm looking forward to it. We always have fun when we're recording together.
Absolutely. And tonight is Thom Zahler's second series, Long Distance. This was originally 4 issues, and then obviously put into a trade paperback. Since it's, I want to say that, when did the trade release? Sometime in anyway, whenever the trade released, like the whole story released, I have read this book. This might be the single most reread comic I have ever read because I used to go back to this book all the time. It's just that good.
Yeah, it looks like I'm looking at it right now. Scott Weinstein, who wrote the foreword, this is August 2015 was the date when the foreword was. So that's when it had to be some kind of published about that. So, yeah. And for old time's sake, Michael, I actually, and you can't see me because they're on camera.
No.
I reread the independent script that this comic was based on.
So that's what you meant about two different versions. Okay,
Yeah.
you said this on Twitter, and I'm like, what do you
Yeah.
mean two different? No, there's only one. There can only be one. Damn it.
Yeah. So, as Thom talked about in
Mhm.
the introduction to the trade paperback, Bravo was doing a competition show, kind of where you submit a script, and the winner of the script would get to have a sitcom produced. And he wrote a pilot script for a sitcom called Long Distance, and he submitted the script. Did not get selected, but he kind of kept it in his mind, and he had shared it with a couple of friends. And then, so he decided to self-publish the script, and you bought it from his website. So I have the Long Distance unpublished script. And then as he continued, Love and Capes has gotten to be more successful. IDW reached out to him and says, "Hey, do you have any other ideas?" And so he kind of fleshed out the script, gave it a full story, and did the 4 issues.
Absolutely. And in the trade, and I eventually want to have Thom back on so I can ask him this, he dedicates it to Jeremy. I wish you had been here for this.
Yes.
I don't know who Jeremy is, but I'm sure there's a story behind that.
Yeah. So Jeremy was a friend of his that was a fellow artist, writer, lived in the Atlanta area, had done, and why am I drawing a blank on Jeremy's book? But Jeremy Dale, and he had done a kind of coming of age, wonderful kind of a barbarian kind of TV show, a Middle Ages story.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
Chris, Thom and Jeremy had gotten to be friends through all different conventions, and the Skyward was the name of Jeremy's book. And so I got to know Jeremy a little bit when I went to Dragon Con a couple of times, worked on the table with Thom, and that's when it is. So his Jeremy's widow, actually, she ended up finishing the second series. She actually went in and wrote, continuing. Kelly wrote a story. So Jeremy had died fairly around that time, and so I'm sure that's why he ended up giving the dedication to him.
Oh, very cool, very cool. Yeah, he died November 3rd of 2014.
Yes.
Oh, he was only 34.
Yeah, very, very young. This was very surprising. Yeah.
And Skyward is 9 issues, so
yeah,
I might have to seek that out somewhere.
Yeah.
So I don't know, and we'll get your history with this comic, but this comic, like, I don't know if it hit me at the right time. I don't know what was. You said it was August of 2015.
Somewhere around that, yeah.
Yeah, so at some point between then and before then, because I actually, like you, read it in single issue, obviously, when it first came out, because I'm just like, oh,
yeah,
blah, 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 blah. Well, in May of 2015, my mom passed, and I was like, okay, well, I need something to pick me up. I need to do something. So I just started reading this thing and reading it, and like literally I would get to the end and just go back to the beginning. And even though I very rarely do that with anything, any kind of media I consume, because usually if you're watching a television show or if you watch a film, you need to wait 6 months, a year, maybe a couple of years, depending on the topic, depending on how deep the TV show or movie is, kind of thing. And with this, I'm just like, nope, I'm just going to keep rereading it and just have fun with it and whatever. And then in 2017, after my own year of hell at the end of 2016, beginning of 2017. In August of that year, I met Karen because, and of course people always ask, oh, how did you meet? And I say, online. How does anybody meet? Like, seriously, in 2017, half of my friends were swiping this way, up, down, inside out, upside down. There were no, I went on a date in a bar, or I went this, or we went to this. There was none of that. It was everybody just swiping left or right.
Yeah.
So when I filled out my profile on, I think it was, we were on OkCupid, which kind of ties into something that Tom did after this. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. When I filled out my profile on OkCupid, I wanted to be as specific as possible. I filled out over 150 pages of questions.
Wow.
I had nothing but time. I always have nothing but time because podcasting, technically, I don't have a day job. I'm disabled. I get disability.
Yeah.
I can't go out and do a physical day labor job type thing. I can't even bag groceries at a grocery store kind of thing. So, I have all the time in the world. So I'm I need to make this as specific as possible. And in that first message I sent her on August 6th, 2017 was, at one point or another, I said something like, oh, and by the way, I am one with the beard force, because in Karen's profile, she said she liked guys with beards. You look at any picture of me, unless I have recently just shaved everything off,
right?
I'm usually in a beard most of the time. So I sent this long message, and just, by that time I had how, well, you may not know because you've been married for a million years, but
yes,
these dating apps, you could send hi, how are you? I liked your you could send any message you want, and most people either won't respond, or they might send, oh, thanks, yeah, I'm not interested, what is some sort of rejection or whatever. So I sent it, and I just kind of walked away from the computer. About, 20, 30 minutes later, I checked it, and she sent me a message back, and we back and forth, and we did this for 3 days on the website, and I was like, okay,
right.
we've been typing back and forth for 3 days. Let me call you, or here's my number, you can call me. Like I said, this was August 6th of 2017. I don't remember what day that was, but I'm going to say it was a Thursday, Friday, whatever, and we ended up talking all weekend long. Literally, there was no moment in that week in August, that whole week in August, where we weren't talking at some point, whether it was on the phone or August 6th was a Sunday. So yeah, between her having to go, the only time we were not talking was when she was at work.
Yeah.
So, and I hadn't gone back to long distance in a while, and I went back to it and I reread it, and I'm just this still gives me the same feeling as I always have had. And in, so what I went through in 2016, it was more of late 2015 throughout all of 2016. It was one of those online relationships. Oh, we'll meet someday, or we'll make plans, or, I live here, she lives there, whatever. It never seemed to be the right time. Neither one of us were really gonna make the jump, even though I did go out there to visit her at the end of the year in 2016. But at the time, so it was this long drawn out thing. So one of the things I told Karen was, I just went through this whole long drawn out thing where it was will they, won't they, or should they, shouldn't they kind of thing, and whatever. And I'm just I don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. If we're talking at least, let's just say 18 hours out of a 24-hour day, then something must be right here. Literally, and I'm not joking, this will come up when we get to actually discussing the comic, but
yeah,
literally it was effortless. Once we started talking on the, literally it just flowed. And I was okay, well, it is what it is. 4 months later, December 6th of 2017, we got married. Mm-hmm. Was I trying to rush into it? No. But again, it felt right. Everything about mine and Karen's relationship felt right.
Yeah.
She came out to Kentucky to visit me because I swear to God, I refuse because I don't want a copyright strike to play ironic in this podcast, but
Yeah.
she's in Chicago. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky. Lee in this comic is in Chicago and Carter is in Columbus, Ohio. So it was kind of, like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And so she came down in September. We hit it off. I pretty much packed everything up. And as much as I could, I went back to Chicago with her for a weekend. And by October, I was living in Chicago in 2017. And in December, we got married of 2017. The sad part of the story is that, and I am telling this correctly, and I want to preface this by saying that I have never, ever, ever been out to defraud the government of anything.
Right.
Okay? I'm on supplemental security income. Supplemental security income has rules, it has laws, it has things that you can and cannot do.
Right.
And it's all dependent on who your parents are, what this is, what your disability is, blah, blah, blah. I was born with a mild case of cerebral palsy.
Yes.
Now, not necessarily for you, but I need to spell this out for the listeners. Cerebral palsy. So basically, I was born brain damaged, and my right hand and foot are not the same. They did not fully grow. I do not have, yes, I can walk, but my right hand, I can maybe pick things up with it, but I basically have to control it with my left hand, so I can't, I have no real, I have 5 fingers or 4 fingers and a thumb on that hand, but it doesn't, I can't, it's not a fully articulated thing. So,
yes,
I was born disabled.
Mm-hmm.
In 2019, of course, this is fast forwarding the story, but come to find out, I had to have brain surgery. I'll get into that later. But I had to have brain surgery. First time in my life at age 39, I found out that I was born without a piece of my brain. It just did not develop when I was in the womb. And so we went to Social Security a week before we were supposed to get married. Mm-hmm. And I said, hey, we are getting married. Is there anything I have to do? Is there anything that's going to change? Oh, no. Just update us with the information, bring us the marriage certificate, put it on file, blah, 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 blah. We did all of that. We did everything we were supposed to do. Karen, unlike me, is a normal human being, was a normal human being. And she works. She works very hard for the money that she earns and everything else. She was in bookkeeping and accounting and all that, stuff and whatever else. And, she was making money. Mm-hmm. We told them this. Because when you, on Social Security, when you marry somebody, they have to know everything about your spouse. They have to know if they work, if they don't, they have to know all this stuff. So they knew. So from 2017 to 2019, happily married, before we got married, when she came to see me in September of 2017, one of the things we bonded over was watching House Hunters and just talking about real estate and whether we were going to buy a house or not buy a house but HGTV, all that house hunting stuff. So we liked watching that stuff. So we also liked, just for the shits and giggles of it, taking house tours just to see what we could see. We were in this house on, it's 4011 something. I forget the actual name of the road. It might have been Laurelwood Drive or something. I don't know. It was a nice 3-bedroom house, and we're only 2 people with a cat, so it's not like we need 3 bedrooms, but it was 3 bedrooms with a basement. And it was a nice, fully furnished, several sections of I could have an office, she could have an office, whatever. I get down to the basement and I look at all that space and I'm like, okay, I can put the podcast stuff here. You can put this here. We can entertain over here. All that stuff. And when we were down there, I said, okay, well, I know what I'm doing the next 50 years of my life. She looks at me quizzically like, what? What are you talking about? Well, do you want to be with anybody else? Like, literally, I didn't get down on one knee and propose, but like,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where we saw this house and whether she was going to move to Louisville or not, like, I knew in that instant that I wanted to be with her until we both look like M. Beth Davids and Robin Williams in Bicentennial Men at the end right before he dies. Like, seriously,
Yeah.
I knew.
Yeah.
I didn't see what the next 50 years would bring us, but I'm like, okay, I know, like, this is it. Obviously, we didn't get that house. I moved to Chicago. We made a stopover in a Chicago suburb called Gurnee because she sold the house she had in Chicago and she bought another house in Gurnee. Anyway, that's a mid step. And her biggest dream was to be out here. I say out here as if I'm still out there. Her biggest dream was to be out there on the West Coast in the Pacific Northwest. She wanted to be basically on the Oregon coast. That was her dream.
Okay.
So in 2019, right before everything started, guess what we did? We made the trek. And I said to her, we're probably not going to get on the coast right away. It's going to take some time. Now, again, this is December 1st through the first 14 days of December. I said, and by that point in time in 2019, we were both having some health issues and things like that. I had just gone through brain surgery in May, which I'll explain in a moment, of 2019. And, I said, whatever apartment we find, whatever, we both need to have easy access because we went on our honeymoon in 2018 to the Oregon coast and the Oregon coast is the Oregon coast. The whole point is it's the beach, it's Pacific Coast Highway or 101 or whatever, and then it's nothing but forest and trees. Yes, there are stores and things, and if you get to one of the more populated towns, there's a hospital, there's a Walmart. Of course, anything has a Walmart these days. But, but generally, like if you're... Because again, the dream was to be not necessarily on the beach, but so close to the coast that you could basically walk to the beach kind of thing. That was her dream. And I'm like, yeah, what if ambulances can't get here fast enough if something happens to one of us? Kind of thing. So we settled in Vancouver, Washington, which most of the people out there consider a suburb of Portland because it's like literally right across the river. It's not a suburb of Portland. It's a completely different city in a completely different state, but that's how they look at it out there anyway. So we find this apartment, and her health kept declining, and sadly, she had trouble with alcohol over her lifetime and things like that. And by November of 2021... By September of 2021, she was in the hospital. She came home twice, and the second time she went back, it was like, yeah, no, she's not coming home. And in November, she passed from liver failure and kidney failure. So yeah. But anyway, the whole point of telling my story here is that parts of it kind of dovetail with some of Long Distance, and at one point or another, I don't remember when this was. It had to have been early because it was sometime in...
Ooh. Technical difficulties. Let's move on, shall we?
Several things happened before we got married. So we also bonded over the artist Thomas Rhett, who is Rhett Atkins' son and all that. And between the song he did with Maren Morris and the song called Unforgettable, in Unforgettable, there's a line about the 14th of October. October 14th of 2017 is when I proposed to Karen because we love the song and all that and everything else. Well, I believe it was Small Business Saturday that year, November 25th. I had sent Tom, to his art studios things. I'm like, hey, can you do this? Can you do this? I want to buy a copy of Long Distance to give to my wife, my future wife, and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So she never, the sad thing is she never actually, we always meant to have her read the comic and everything else, but we never got around to it because just life and things. But the dedication I wrote, I had him write to her in the book because I still have the physical book. It's in storage somewhere currently, but I still have this, but thankfully, I keep all my PayPal receipts. Yeah. So in the dedication, I said, to Karen, Mike wants, and this is obviously written in Tom's voice, Mike wants you to know that it's the similarities and differences that make any couple work long term, whether that be long distance or in the same room. Your lives together started on August 6, 2017, and then your adventure becomes a lifetime journey on December 6th of 2017. Please enjoy Long Distance and see where Mike gets a lot of inspiration from.
Yeah.
So that's my history with this book and this series and the characters within it. So.
Yeah. So from my perspective, I've told the story before, but that was over 5 years ago. I guess 7. I was attending a convention in New Orleans, and I had, walking through the artist alley as one does, and there was a guy who, and I cannot remember the cost, but it was not much. I will draw you as a superhero. And so I gave him the money. It was Tom. And I said, yeah, draw me a Superman, because Superman is one of my favorite characters. And as we started talking, we discovered a mutual love of Sports Night and Aaron Sorkin. At the time, I don't think West Wing had started. I think it was just Sports Night. And we really we had a fun discussion. And he gave me a card and said, here's my website. And so I read his trip report of going to New Orleans and truly found it very entertaining, and continued to follow his blog as he talked about shows. And there came a point where I needed some art at my job. And I reached out to him and I said, hey, Tom, this is Jesse. Don't remember if you remember me from New Orleans. And he goes, oh, absolutely. And I said, would you want to do some art for me? And he said, sure. And so I had him do some designs for us, and did a few other things. We did some. And so it reached the point where he had emailed and talked over the phone multiple times. And I said, hey, would you ever want to come to Dallas? And he said, well, actually, if you want to book me to do caricatures all day, that cost will usually cover my expenses. And I said, well, and you could stay at our house for free. And the reason my wife did not worry that someone on the internet was staying with me is because Tom talked about that he got to bed at 4 a.m., but he got up at 7 because he couldn't miss Mass when he was in New Orleans.
Right.
And Linda's like, okay, Catholic boy, I trust, being in our house. And to this day, she calls him Catholic boy. So he came, and all of a sudden there are posters he is seeing posters because I had asked him to do some motivational posters, and he had driven those, and we had them framed, and he had done a couple of t-shirts for us for different themes. And so he's walking into this office. There's his art on the wall. There are people walking by in t-shirts with his logo on it. And he's like, oh my God, it's a Thom Zahler museum. And we collect. And so he and I, he visited Dallas multiple times. Then he went to Dragon Con, and I ended up. So I've gone to Dragon Con and kind of hung out at his booth 3 or 4 times. So just truly one of my best friends. And so he told me about pitching Long Distance, and I had read the script and liked it. And then when he told me that he was going to do it as a comic, I was really excited and loved the 4 issues. I think that what started out as just a little bitty, you're going to meet at an airport, you're going to have some attraction, but you live in separate cities. How will you make this work? He ended up telling a really lovely love story.
Yep. Yeah, no, absolutely. It really is. It's one of those. And the thing is he starts this off by, the line of, I used to be in a long distance relationship. Used to be, because he's sitting in an airport. Carter, one of the 2 protagonists, and this other couple is like, trying to go get coffee, and he's like, yeah, go here. There's a Dunkin' Munchkin Don. I'm like, oh, Tom, you're cutting it so very close. Like, seriously, I was half hoping to see this guy, this other guy that he's talking to, go to the line, and there would be a character of, it's time to make the dough. Like, I literally wanted to see the Dunkin' Donuts guy in this. But anyway, he does amazing work, and it just works. So Carter Blue, the main male protagonist, basically starts off by telling the story, and he's telling it to the couple, and we get to New York. Now, I've read this book enough times to where I know it by memory, even though I'm still looking at some of these pages. My only gripe. Purple should have been Boston, not New York. Because I'm a Bostonian. I'm a Bostonian. Don't get me wrong. Like, look, it's his story. It's his book. It's whatever. But, like, every time I see this purple, I'm like, oh, wait, that's not Boston. It's New York. It's the city so nice they named it twice. And to give a little background, and we will not do too many spoilers this case, but we are going to talk a little bit. One of the things that Tom decided to do to help move the story along is different shading. If you are in one city, the panels are a certain color. If you're in a different city, it's in a different color, and then neutral colors are. So you don't have to know that to enjoy the book, but if you do know that, it works subconsciously, even if you don't know. But then once you do it, the yellow, the green, the brown, the purple really does give you, a great feeling of, where are they at? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's one of the most interesting uses of color I think a comic has had in the past 90 years. Like, the color drives the character perspective. Like you said, with the orange for Illinois and the yellow for Indiana and the green for Ohio, and it just works. And so we won't get into too many spoilers, but since this book has been out for a number of years, I am most likely, because the whole point is being able to talk about the end.
Yes.
So we are probably going to spoil the plot, folks, but we won't spoil every little detail.
Yes, exactly.
Except the end.
Yeah.
But I just, let's just talk about this first area here, the New York area, where, they meet because some kid thinks it's Halloween and can dress up in a Batman costume. Bat Kid wipes Carter out, and Lee appears, and she's obviously the female protagonist of the story, and they kind of connect. And one of my favorite panels is the close-up panel on her lips. Carter, I dare you. And then the next full panel is him kissing her. And just, oh, that is so good.
Yeah, it really is. And I love that he very much portrays that there is this instant chemistry, much like you were talking about with your lovely bride, that there are people that you meet and there is an immediate chemistry. And you know, one of the things that I am very proud of, or grateful of, I guess is a better way, is back in 2012, my wife and I had not gone on a vacation by ourselves in probably a decade. We'd always gone with another couple. We'd always gone with the kid. And so 2012, we decided we wanted to take a trip by ourselves. And so we ended up from Dallas driving up to Cleveland and driving back and having lots of stops on the way. We called it our Bruce and Bourbon Tour because we saw Bruce Springsteen in concert and we went through the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. But we're in the car, Michael, and we sometimes talked, and other times we just listened to the music in a comfortable silence. And after that, like 9 days of vacation, you know, we both kind of looked at each other and said, it's kind of cool that we still like hanging with each other.
Yeah.
You know, we got married in 84. So, you know, in 2012, I can't do math. I was promised there'd be no math in this.
Okay, so let me wait. This is perfect. What month in 84 did you get married?
June.
Damn, a few months off. Anyway,
Yeah.
September 17th, 1984, the now classic Hasbro Transformers brand launched the cartoon. So 1984 to 2014.
Yeah.
That's 30 years or somewhere right around there. So yeah, let's just say 28 years.
Yeah. And so we still loved talking to each other. And he captured that very well in Lee and Carter enjoy each other's company almost. They are immediately. There is immediately a meet cute, and this discussion that is just really, really cool to see.
Yeah, yeah, and the funny thing about the New York scene is that it's, you know, would you like to go for a walk? Absolutely, and. This is after they realize, or he realizes, because Carter's oblivious to this, because Carter, in this first opening scene, Carter is like me when things are thrown at me and I have like 20 different things to do, and I'm a single-minded, like Carter has had a bad day, the client, all this stuff, you know, and he's just not in the mood, and Bat Kid wiping him out makes it even worse.
Yeah.
So he doesn't notice the fact that looking outside in this, I think in LaGuardia. Anyway, they're in a New York airport, whichever one it is. I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's a detail, whatever. So, but you can clearly look out the window and see that it's snowing. He doesn't do this. He's oblivious to this until he and Lee meet and they do the kiss and whatever else. And they, you know, so they have time in an airport to actually have a conversation. And it's so good. So
good. And I think what's really Tom talks about in the foreword is that, and I share with you, a huge fan of Aaron Sorkin and that dialogue, that snappy back and forth. And they have that happening. Both of them are, Lee and Carter are both smart. They're clever. They're quick-witted. But they do have a nice little thing. There is a scene where she reads an email that he sent her, and she says, "Oh, this is the perfect email," and I bet you he just whipped it out, and then you cut, to the scene where, you could see Carter thinking about every word before he sent that, trying to get the right, balance of being cute and being funny and being brief and not being overly noticed. And I just love that.
Yeah, no, you're right. Absolutely. That moment is so amazing because you can imagine him just thinking. And it's the same thing with me. When I was doing the whole online dating application thing where I filled out all these questions and which added up to like 20 or 30 pages of questions. Karen had like 6 or 7 pages of questions. And I even told her this. I said, your questions are like 6, 7, 8. She's like, really? I answered that many? And it's just one of those things where if you've gone through all of that, if you've done the research, like obviously us, it was a little different than what Carter and Lee are doing here, obviously, but it's still the same kind of sentiment where it's like, and yeah, you're right. That email was, oh boy.
Yeah.
And it's so fun. And they both have their respective best friends to report to.
Yes.
And they both do it in very different ways.
Yeah.
Carter just calls his buddy Tim in the middle of the night, and you know how hard it is to sleep with a 3-year-old in the house, kind of thing.
Yes.
And,
yes.
the Dreamy Cream, hot now,
Yes.
I swear to God,
Time to make the donuts. Dunkin' Donuts are always fresh.
I made the donuts.
We make them at least twice every day.
Time to make the donuts.
Not a few kinds like supermarket,
Made the donuts. Time to make the donuts.
but up to 52 varieties.
The donuts. Time to make the donuts. I made the donuts.
Dunkin' Donuts, up to 52 varieties, fresh day and night. No supermarket can say that.
So when Carter, first gets back, before we have the email thing, he first gets back and he's messaging he's calling his best friend Tim. And when Tim gets to the door, he's like, oh, what is it? Where is it here? It's, it's first Dreamy Cream Deliciousness, then Jibba Jabba. Donuts first. This panel, I love this panel because I'm like, oh God, it's Mr. T of the best friend era kind of thing. And then this is like the middle of the night. This is like when Carter first lands back in Columbus. Whereas in Chicago, Lee just waits until the next day to talk to her friend Stephanie.
Yes.
Oh, man, I love this book so much.
Yeah. There is a really good thing. One of the nice things, the change from the original script is Carter was a freelance artist, and Lee was a accountant bookkeeper who wanted to be a model.
Okay.
And he, as Tom's expanding this, and he talks about this in the postscript, is that he wanted to make Lee a little more interesting by having her being a scientist, and it also means you get to make the Dr. Smith joke because she has a doctorate and her last name is Smith, and Carter having a business makes it tougher for him to leave. Because if you own a business, it is kind of hard to, hey, let's get up and move to another city. Yeah.
But the thing is as this progresses, we find out that Tim is just like, dude, go.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Carter is the creative person. Carter is the person that handles all. I'm not saying Tim can't be creative. Tim is the writer, but Carter is the illustrator. But Tim also handles the numbers and the this and the that and the day-to-day type stuff. So Carter could technically run the business long distance if he has to. Luckily, and this is something we haven't covered yet, but luckily with Carter, he lives right across the street from his business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is hilariously
which is greatness. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we and they also, there is a little bit of wish fulfillment on this. When you're creating your own world, Carter and Tim, his partner, are the kind of bosses we wish we had. Right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
I mean, it's like my buddy Steve and I, where I'm just like he does most of the back end stuff for the website and whatever else, and I do the recording and the editing and the whatever, and he does the graphics. So we split it up and all this and everything else. It's the same kind of thing. Carter and Tim each have their own strengths, and they obviously want, Tom wants to play to their strengths, and that's what works for them.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And, and the other things that, one of the things that frustrates me, Michael, is when you're watching a movie or a sitcom where the obstacle between our two friends, our couple, would, if they just talked about it, it wouldn't be a problem, right? And this is Tom knows that, and as he makes this realistic obstacles, things that really would cause you issues. What do you do about your job? What do you do if you're offered an opportunity for a big promotion, but that means you're having to move? And, one of the early kind of mini crises is when Lee goes to visit, a work crisis happens, and all of a sudden Carter has to spend the weekend working with his this was their second quote unquote date. Yeah. And he spends the whole weekend working. Yeah. And she doesn't pitch a fit. She doesn't do like an exaggerated situation. It's, I get that your job's important. These things happen. Let's figure out how we're going to get through it.
Yep. Absolutely. And it is so good. And it just is, again, effortless as far as how that is. And then what I love, and I am so glad I can read this all in one go now. Yeah. When the single issues were like, you need to have a hook for single issues. You need to have a way to keep the reader coming back. Yeah. The man makes them run late at the end of every issue except the last one, obviously. But issues 1 through 3, there's always some. Next time, let's not oversleep in the movie theater or whatever. Yeah. Like, why are we always rushing to the gate, to this, to that? And like, oh God, it's just. I just love this so much. It's so fun. And again, the color palette is so. You would think that constantly, like, one of my biggest things in comics in general is I don't like jumpy time travel. Mm-hmm. Like, if you have a page that has, let's say, 6 panels on it. Yeah. In the first panel, you start in the present. In the second panel, you go back to 1905 or whatever. In the third panel, you jump ahead to 2055 or, like, I don't like jumpy time travel in comic books. It makes my head hurt. But with these colors, and, the colors are labeled to the location, and the location changes. The colors don't change because, as we've already said, green is for Columbus, orange is for Chicago, purple is for New York, blue is for Michigan, blah, 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 blah. So that is, again, what makes this so great. And as these two keep on doing their date night thing and everything else, and another one, even though I don't drink, but another one of my favorite panels in this is, where she's like, "What? We didn't think to get a corkscrew or wine with a screw off top. Screw off top, savage!" And I'm just like, yeah, that's probably what I would have done. Because wine corks are the worst.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that, gets them into this whole, internet adventure of trying to hit it with a shoe or do this or do that. Like, it's this whole... Tom sets up these adventures for them to have amongst their dates, and whether he's at her place or she's at his place or states and whatever else. And it's just so endearing and fun.
Yeah, it truly is. One of the, and I love the discussion back and forth of, there is good supporting characters in this book.
Mm-hmm.
Not only, his partner, but her grandmother, and, the things that you do when you have a life. How do you give up taking care of your grandmother?
Right.
How do you, as you said, he's mentioning, his friend Tim's like, no, go, go, go. But you've been putting in this. We've been wanting, this is just a job. You need to focus on your relationship, but that's easier said than done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to have a job. You have to have this. You have, as a normal human being, and I know we all have issues as humans, but it is what it is. And it's just one of those things where Tim knows, just like Stephanie knows, and just like, the grandmother knows, and everything else. What I find interesting is that we get where both of their parents are, but we get it in very different ways. She eventually tells him that her mom basically abandoned the family. Her dad died a few years later, so the grandmother raised her. He eventually tells, we find out at the end of the book in the map when they do the traveling, we find out that his parents live in Florida, of course. Yeah. I wouldn't, like...
Yeah. So I think I do think it's interesting. There, you have to, how are you going to, the story that we're setting up is that the actual name of the book is Long Distance, right? So if they get in the same city, the premise stops, right? I mean, we have to be thinking about that.
Yeah.
So we mentioned specifically, you said we will spoil the ending. So if you have never watched this and you want to, kind of go see it, I recommend it and not be spoiled. Skip ahead, give us about 10 minutes, and then we'll cover. So were you happy with the way he ended up resolving this long distance relationship?
As someone who by the time I was 18, 19, graduating high school, thinking about college, but not really ever going there, because back in those days, 20 years ago, apparently, no matter what degree you tried to have, you had to have, I hate math. I cannot do. Right. Anyway, so me, being on the internet and chat rooms and blah, blah, and I like this girl, or I like that girl, you live here, I live here, how are we going to do this, whatever. I was worried, just like the female companion, the female traveler at the beginning, like, oh, you used to be in a long distance relationship? The whole boldness of used to be. And this is why he is telling her the story as her mate goes off and finds the cronuts and the whatever else. And, yeah, I was wondering I'm like, oh no, don't tell me there's like, and then we get to that point of, so did you move? Did she move? What happened? Well, the distance kept happening, and we, she would go here, I would go there. We would, she was in Southern California, I was up in Marin County, and how their lives ended up being a long distance life, not just a long distance relationship. Because look, even back in let's say 2014, 2015, at that point we had many different messaging services. You've got text messages, you've got cell phones, you've got computers, you've got the internet. There's more than enough ways to communicate with someone when you can't be with them. Physically in the same whatever.
Yeah.
So, and what I love is that the friends around them, even the coworkers or the employees that Tim and Carter have, like, go get it done, boss. Go do what you have to. Like, there is no, oh my God, like Tim and Carter are best friends. Oh my God, you're abandoning me for a chick? That's never. No. You never even think like that, because this is not your stand. This is not a bad Bravo soap opera. And the reason why I say a bad Bravo soap opera is because, hello, Bravo is, Real Housewives and whatever else they do on that network. Whatever, this isn't that. This is that, like, and let's face it, Tom, if you've read Love and Capes at all before this, which I didn't, I actually read this first, and then we had gone back and done Love and Capes on the old episode of the podcast here.
Yeah.
But this is one of those, you want them to have a happy ending, and I wasn't sure how this was going to work out. And then you get to the end and you see, it's a map, but let's face it. When I originally read this was in the olden times, folks, before Amazon bought Comixology and destroyed it, where I could actually read this on my computer the way it's supposed to be read. But when that map blows up, it was like, oh, it's literally a map of the United States interstilled with them in various cities like Seattle or wherever. And, it's this big splash page of the map and all of the interconnecting panels. They sadly remind me of Monopoly game board squares, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And like I said, the distance kept happening. So, at the end here, again, spoiler warning, if you haven't read this, stop the podcast now. But, hey, the line was long, but it still beat the lines at the food court. That line wasn't moved at all. Thanks, dude. So where are you off to, It doesn't matter as long as we're together.
Yeah.
I love this book.
Yeah, and what's really, really important, is they make it work. They find a way, and the book sums up, well, there was that time when we did this, and she ended up doing this. We did this, and we spent that 1 year in the summer of the year of Hades. The less we talk about that, and I love better that you don't tell that. So the idea, and I remember talking to Thom and not necessarily when he was plotting this, but I remember reading a book from James Michener that was all about space, and it was him retelling the space race. And there were two characters that was an astronaut and one of his wife, and they never in the same city, just based on circumstances. And their whole marriage was happy, even though they lived in different cities, and they would take these long vacations together, road trips, and that's when they would do a lot of time together. So I think there is that basis of not every relationship, successful relationships, needs to be, you fall in love, you buy a house, you have your 2.3 kids. There are people that can have a different kind of relationship, and I think this is, these two have found the way to make their relationship very happy.
Yeah. And the way that, the way they go about finding that way is how they also explore what it is about each other that they each love. Like, they each have specific traits of the other person that they love about them. And they that was one of the things with Karen and I, where it's like, okay, we're not just going to break. Like, I don't want to just date you online for the next X number of whatever. Yeah. I'm not just here to, let's get married. And I'm not just here for that. I'm more so here for, let's make this work. As you said earlier, let's talk about it. Whatever's going on, let's just try, after the initial anxiety or fear or anger or whatever passes, let's just have a discussion, talk it out, work through it, and continue on being the happy people that we were being.
Yeah.
Did we argue? Yes, every couple argues. Did we yell at each other? Yes, every couple yells at each other. Same thing with Lee and Carter. Everything happens. And even though I have mentioned to Tom in emails and in other things, I want to know what happened in the year of hell and whatever, I'm still so glad that he has never gone back to that to tell us that story. I will say, no matter what the man's doing, I am always bringing this up to him. Okay, where are they now? What are they doing? What's going on? Again, one of those small business Saturdays, he came on social media, Twitter, Facebook, whatever it was, and said, okay, it's Small Business Saturday. I'll do any whatever for you as whatever, base, whatever it is. And, $25, $30, whatever it is. I'll make. So I believe this was Small Business Saturday 2017. Most likely. Maybe 20. Anyway, it was after we had done the interview, after I'd done the interview with him and whatever else the first time. I said, okay, well, I need to know, where are Lee and Carter now?
Mm-hmm.
So he sent me I obviously paid him the money. He sent me the character and sent me the thing. And this was like right at my birthday, maybe. I don't remember. But anyway. So it's a picture of Lee and Carter. They are together. Carter is, trying to have them take a selfie. They're walking and, you see the Sydney Opera House in the background. So they're in Australia.
Oh, how fun.
Yeah, and I'll have this picture in the post, and Lee says, frequent flyer miles, baby. So I've always wanted the long distance sequel. I've always wanted to figure out where they are now, if there is another story to tell with these characters, whatever that story may be, as long as they're together, as long as there's, something. But if he never goes back to it, because I know he's one of these people that he does something and he likes to move on and do other things. Mm-hmm. And that's how it should be. That's, you finish one thing, you move on to the next. But sometimes, you go back to the well, or you go back to a story that you have already finished and be like, okay, where? So that's kind of where I am with it. And I still love the story, even though Karen passed away and everything else. The story still affects me the way it did before I met Karen, and it still affects me the way it does after I met her, even though sadly she never got a chance to fully read it. Even though I told her all, like literally, I gave her a whole hour and a half podcast that was never recorded of me telling her all about this book.
Yeah.
You know, so it is what it is. And it's an amazing comic. Everybody should go pick it up. Go check it out. 5 out of 5 as far as rating for me. 5 stars out of 5 stars.
Yeah, I agree with this. I would give this 5 out of 5, or if we're going to scale to 10,
Yeah,
10
it's
out
a
of
10.
10.
Yeah.
Yeah, free cups of hotel coffee. Which, there is a lot of coffee drink in the book, which if you know Tom, you know that is not a big stretch.
No.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is great. I love it, and I really recommend it. And I don't know. I mean, he, for the longest time, did not go back to Love and Capes.
Right.
And then the right story came to him, and he said, okay, maybe I could do this. And so who knows? Maybe he'll come up with it. I still think this would make a great sitcom. And, it would be a wonderful, hey, Hallmark Channel, I'm looking at you.
No.
This would be a wonderful miniseries.
No. The only way this can be done.
Oh,
Tom,
yes?
The only way this can be done is Tom has to, I don't want to say do everything, but Tom has to be fully involved. It has to be animated, and you have to find the right voice actors to do it.
Oh, you think
because
so? You would not want to see this in live word?
No.
Real?
No, it has to be a cartoon. It can be a cartoon miniseries. It can be a cartoon movie, whatever. It has to be animated because you need to transition the style from the page to the screen the way, like, literally, this reads to me like a cartoon. Because it's a comic. It's a whatever, but it's like I quoted in the love. Okay, cartoonist boy, get to work. It's that thing. So yeah, it has to be animated if it's ever done. I hope it is, but they have to find the right voices for it. That's the two biggest things I see with this. If it is animated, it has to be specifically his style. And you have to find the right male and female lead voice actors.
Very nice. Well,
yeah.
Listeners, tell us who you think would be great voices.
That's the thing. I don't hear, okay, you read any other, let's just go back to standards. You read a Batman book, most people are either going to hear, depending on how dark or how light the book is, most people are either going to hear Adam West, Kevin Conroy, blah, 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 whichever, as Batman. You go to an Iron Man book, most people are going to hear Robert Downey Jr. in their head as Tony Stark. I don't know who would be perfect for this because I don't have I have a specific way I know their voices should sound in my head, but I don't know any actors that are that sad. I don't know.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
However, Mark over there at Love and Capes, what's his best friend's name? Oh God,
Paul.
Yes. Paul, if Love and Capes is ever adapted to animation, not that I don't know if it ever will be, but if it is, Phil LaMarr, hands down. Because Phil has that big, gruff, grumbly voice that he can do, kind of thing.
Good.
Hi, I'm Phil LaMarr, voice of Green Lantern in Justice League, and you're listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
We are going to take a quick break. You're going to hear some ads and some other stuff, and we are going to come back to close the show after this.
Do you know John Hyatt songs?
Maybe you know them from being covered by Roseanne Cash, Three Dog Night, the Neville Brothers, Emmylou Harris, Eric Clapton, B.B. King, Jeff Healey, Bonnie Raitt, or literally hundreds of others.
Maybe you have some of his albums on your shelf, or in your cow-horned Cadillac right now.
I'm Jesse Jackson.
And I'm Sylvan Groff.
And we're going to dive in from A to Z. Join us on the Perfectly Good podcast.
We're going to discuss all of your favorites and uncover some forgotten gems, from Aces Up Your Sleeve to Zero House.
Rate and debate every John Hyatt song on the Perfectly Good podcast. Have a little faith.
Hey, welcome to the Last Comic Shop Podcast,
a comic book podcast that actually talks about comics.
Yep, each week we open the shop up and read and discuss a comic.
Sometimes we pair that up with comic book movies or TV shows.
Or not. Lots of times it's just comic books and sound effects.
Oh, yes, definitely lots of sound effects.
So tune in on all the major podcasting platforms for the Last Comic Shop Podcast, or check out our library of evergreen shows at www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com.
For over 6 years, my guest and I have been discussing the soundtracks to our lives. I'm Jesse Jackson, and I've had hundreds of fans from around the world share their stories about the power and magic of all kinds of music. If you enjoy stories about joy, redemption, trials, and ultimately triumph, then please check out Set Listing Bruce, a Bruce Springsteen fan podcast. Remember, there is magic in the night.
Like science fiction? Of course you do, or you wouldn't be listening to the Geekcast Radio Network. Well, the Marku 42's Universe podcast is an award-winning sci-fi radio show that's been around for over 10 years. We cover everything from Doctor Who to the MCU to pop culture and everything in between. A new show drops on Tuesday mornings on the GCRN website and all of the major podcast platforms. So listen to the Marku 42's Universe podcast from the universe and beyond.
You are receiving a transmission from the Rod Pod. Upload pending.
Stand by for soundtrack transfer.
I am Maggie.
And I am John.
And we are trapped, hurtling through space in a ship shaped like Rodimus's head.
The ship, for reasons we haven't been able to determine, contains the entire run of the IDW Transformers Phase 2 comic, which chronicle the events following the end of the war between the Autobots and Decepticons. So we figure we may as well read them all in order and report our findings to you. Stand by. Stand by.
Upload complete. Now.
The Rod Pod. Look for us at marriedwcomics.libsyn.com, at iTunes, at Stitcher, or wherever good podcasts can be found.
So, till all are one.
Till all are one.
Till all are one.
Hi, I'm Terry Smith, the host of Music Talks, the podcast where I ask guests a simple but beguiling question. Choose a song from each decade of your life and tell me why these songs mean so much to you. Guests and listeners love this format, and if you want to find out why, then take a listen at musictalkspod.buzzsprout.com or use your favourite podcast app. Just search on Music Talks Terry Smith. If you'd like to be a guest on the show and talk to me, then send me a tweet at Music Talks Pod. I look forward to doing some music talking soon.
Oh, hey, I got something.
Since 2009, we have been the premier cartoon podcast here at the Geekcast Radio Network. We are Tooncast. From taking you beyond the cartoons we grew up with to seasonal saucy toon talk, and now we get the origins of toonsters everywhere as we ask guests 30 questions about their cartoon watching experiences, plus so much more. Tooncast is back. Join me, TFG1Mike, and the rest of the GCRN crew as we give you all the toon talk you will ever need, only on the GCRN. And wherever you consume your podcasts, we are beyond good, beyond evil, beyond your wildest imagination. We are all tunes all the time here on Tooncast.
Yeah. Because the world needs another another movie podcast.
The Geekcast Radio Network presents for your listening pleasure the Cinema Geek.
Hosted by Amanda, Kevin, Matt, and Dan.
Each week we dive headfirst in the landscape of movies as we discuss movie news, play movie games,
go in-depth on reviews,
and even have a top 10 countdown or two.
Also, don't miss our director retrospective series, where we review noted directors' movies film by film. Bottom line is, if you love movies and love podcasts, you need to experience the Cinema Geeks.
You can find us on iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, or GeekCastRadio.com.
Hi, I'm Dan, and I'm the host of the Rock Nerd Radio Show, which airs live on HudsonRiverRadio.com every Wednesday evening at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It also gets backed up as a podcast, which you can find on your preferred podcasting platform. Every week on my show, I talk about all kinds of pop culture. I talk about music, I talk about movies, TV, comics, collectibles, and so much more. I also feature a guest on my show periodically, which you might enjoy. I have a couple of special segments on my show, one called the Cover Song of the Week and My Favorite Thing in the World This Week. If you think this sounds cool, check it out sometime. I hope you do.
Do you like retro cartoons? Then Saturday Morning Rewind is the podcast for you. Join them each month as they talk about classic cartoons and interview legendary voice actors like Jim Cummings.
I am the terror that flaps in the night.
Corey Burton.
Sometimes things can be so funny.
Rob Paulson.
Sure, Brain, but how are we going to find chaps our size?
Nancy Cartwright and many more.
Eat my shorts.
So grab a bowl of Lucky Charms.
They're magically delicious.
Put on your hammer pants. Go to SaturdayMorningRewind.com. And be prepared to feel like a kid again. Once again, that's SaturdayMorningRewind.com. Saturday Morning Rewind was voted Best Podcast Ever by its host, Tim Nidell. So it's gotta be good.
Hello, all sentient beings. Want the latest on everything going on in the Transformers multiverse? Check out the Transmissions Podcast Network. We've got weekly podcasts covering everything from Alpha Trion to Omega Supreme, from old school G1 all the way up to Cyberverse and beyond. And you don't want to miss Empire of Rust, the world's first and only Transformers live play role-playing game podcast. If you love Transformers, there's something for everyone at transmissionspodcast.com.
Discover a world of vintage and modern toys that's more than meets the eye with the Triple Takeover Toycast.
Hosted by toy writers and photographers Toy Box Soapbox, 6O, and TF Square 1, this informal and chilled out series of discussions cover everything from vintage Transformers to Mask, Diaclone, Microman and more, be it nostalgic or current.
Whether you're a seasoned collector or a casual robot enthusiast, all are welcome.
Triple Takeover Toycast.
On the Simplistic Reviews podcast, we talk movies. We talk TV. We talk...
Hello, Julie, what the heck are you doing?
Trying to make our spots sound more exciting by adding explosions.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could have got the point across with sound effects, not the real thing.
Download this show on iTunes or at simplisticreviews.blogspot.com.
I'm sure your insurance company will cover that.
No, they won't.
No, they probably won't.
What just happened to me here?
All right, we are back here inside the pull bag as Jesse and I talk about Thom Zahler's Long Distance. We've already all given it 5s and 10s and hundreds and thousands and amazing and amazing and amazing. Everyone needs to read this comic. It's so fun. It's so good. Between the writing, between the art, it's just amazing.
Absolutely, I agree. You know, and I hopefully you take a jump into the Zahlerverse and then check some other things. Tom is, and in the future we will be talking about this. There is Warning Label. There is Time and Vine. There is obviously Loving Capes and Cupid's Arrows. And so all of these amazing wonderful stories written and drawn by Tom, and I know you will enjoy it.
Oh, yes, and I have plans already. A warning label is next week. I actually just finished rereading that.
Nice.
And the funny thing about warning label is after I read it the first and second times, I got that Small Business Saturday sketch from Tom with Carter and Lee.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily saying the next time a Small Business Saturday comes around, but the next time I have some extra cash lying around, I plan on commissioning him, hopefully, because what I want now, besides to find out whatever Carter and Lee are up to, I want Carter and Lee to meet Jeff and Danielle.
Nice.
And I know exactly where I want them to meet, and it's just I'm hoping Tom has really good ideas for that, because serious, I will tell you the idea off air. I think I've told Tom the idea, but I don't remember. I really don't remember. All right. Where can the people find your lovely podcast, Set Listing Bruce, sir?
Yeah, so Set Listing Bruce is where I have over 850 episodes of me talking to fans of musicians, not just Bruce Springsteen, but all kinds of musicians, bands, genres of music from around the world. I just talked to a wonderful guy from Israel. I've had someone from Russia, the UK, South America, Canada, the US. So it's Set Listing Bruce wherever you find your podcast. Look for it and check it. You can hear me talking about Doctor Who on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast with my buddy Charles Skaggs. And my newest podcast is JKL Media, Last Best Hope for Babylon 5 Conversation, where we are going through, Lou and my two co-hosts have never watched Babylon 5, and we are going through one episode at a time discussing Babylon 5.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yes, I hate this because I feel that opinions are just opinions, and I have one opinion and somebody else has opinions are like assholes. We've all got one.
Yeah.
So I don't believe in the hot take thing. I hate, but my controversial hot take is Pine is a better Kirk.
Okay. All right.
And she's right. Cisco is the best captain because Deep Space Nine is everybody. Oh, Shatner and Picard. Don't get me wrong. Love them both. Respect them both.
Yeah.
I like TNG more than I like the classic series, only because I was raised on TNG. But I just had to throw that in here before I run through the closing for this podcast, because as we've said already, next week Jesse will be back in episode 495, as we will be 5 episodes away from 500. Here inside the Pullback, we will be talking about Tom's comic after Long Distance, which was Warning Label, which is a whole different kettle of fish, and the only thing he kept, which is fine, it's a new thing. The only thing is the color palette thing, which I think is awesome. That he still is using that color palette type comic artistry stuff. I absolutely love it.
Absolutely. I agree.
All right. Thank you for joining us here inside the Pullback. If you'd like to get in contact with us, leave feedback for the show, there are several ways to do so. Visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can listen to and comment on all of our content. You can find us on any podcatcher place. iTunes is still a thing, even though people don't think it is, but it is still a thing. You can find us on Spotify and other places as well. You can follow us on Twitter at Geekcast Radio for the network, at the Pullbag for the show. I am at TFG1Mike. What is your Twitter, sir?
I am at Jesse Jackson DFW.
Awesome. Become a fan on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/Geekcast Radio Network. You can also search out the Pullbag over there, as well as you have a Set Listing Bruce page over there, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Well, that'll be in the show notes too. For now, I am TFG1Mike with
Jesse Jackson.
Make your great escape into comics and join us next week as we take a look at the warning label. Uh-oh.
Yo.
It's fiery.
Yes.
You've just heard the latest episode of The Pullbag, the GCRN's first comic review and discussion podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate and leave a review for the show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Become a fan of us on Facebook, facebook.com/thepullbag. Send us an email, feedback at geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at thepullbag and at geekcastradio. So until next time, make your great escape into comics and unleash the geek in you.
For crying out loud.